Question everything in pursuit of your purpose. Ask yourself, what if?
Well, y'all, thank you for joining us again for another episode of Pursuit of Purpose. I'm Robbie. This is
Chuck.
And today we have with us a very special guest. Many of our local Southeast Texas community are going to know him, but I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about him.
Well, my name's Roy West. I have the privilege of being the mayor of the city of Beaumont at this time. And I was born here in Beaumont and have spent the majority of my life here. And my wife and I have 5 adult children, 4 of which are married. The 5th one's getting married later this month. We have 10 grandchildren. So, and 6 of which are here in Beaumont. So 3 of my adult kids are here in Beaumont with their spouses. So I've had several careers, been in the mortgage business for the last 20 plus years, and I've owned real estate from an investment perspective for probably 30 years. And went to Lamar University after graduating high school from Forest Park, and graduated from Lamar in 1983, ended up in Houston as a Houston police officer and spent some time in law enforcement, and then came back to Beaumont in 1988, a year after first child was born. And so
Those crickets were not a sound effect.
they were not.
Just to let you guys know, we are not bored here whatsoever.
No.
The crickets are not a sound effect. That was his phone.
It is my phone, and the crickets I can always hear, but there's other things I don't always hear. So that is my ringtone.
I love it.
I just wanted to throw that out there. It's
Yeah.
a commonly used sound effect.
Yeah, it is.
And you were talking. I didn't want
You
anybody
didn't want
out
people
there-
to think y'all were tossing me crickets.
Yeah.
But but my life has been so much better than I deserve, but I've had a lot of different careers, if you will. I went from I was an investigator for a law firm, and then a friend of mine and I started a local security guard company, an alarm company, in the early '90s, and I sold that in 2000. And it still exists. It's still here in town. And then I ended up in the mortgage business. And so
That's amazing.
It is.
it's never dull.
No.
So I'd like to ask you, we're going to go reverse a little
Okay.
bit. I'd like to talk to you about your home life as a child. So were you one of siblings, or what was that like? What was it like in your home growing up?
I have a sister that's older, 3.5 years older, and my mom and dad, my sister lives over in Houston now, but my mom and dad they're both deceased now, but I had an incredible childhood. They loved one another, they loved us, and I grew up here in Beaumont. And my dad's, when I was born, was a coach, ended up going into the insurance business. So, but he coached my little league teams and that kind of thing. So
That's
I
amazing.
had a wonderful childhood, and certainly having the privilege of being mayor now, I see the challenges in our communities and how so many young people don't have those same advantages. And one of the reasons that I ran for mayor is I think as a community we need to show up better. I like to remind people that when I feel like we're making great strides in Beaumont, but the only way Beaumont is going to be the city that we all want it to be is when we show up, because the citizens, the residents are Beaumont. Oftentimes, they refer to the mayor and the city council, and we certainly have an important role, and it's a privilege to be a part of it. But we can only set the vision, help move it forward, but it takes people executing on that. And Beaumont does a great job of doing that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I'm excited about the future of Beaumont.
Some people get confused about our elected officials. A lot of times they see them as they are the leaders, and that they're responsible for things. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is that our elected officials are our servants. They work for us, with us,
Mhm.
to help us manage and
Right.
hopefully fix issues and do things better than they've been done before. But they're not responsible. They can't create or resolve all the problems that
Right.
exist in any, place where they're elected to serve.
Well, and clearly people do have some unrealistic expectations
Yeah.
of elected officials, and but I do, when you put yourself out there, you need to show up, you need to be involved in your community, you need to hear from your community, and then you need to uh and I know as we've done, in terms of approaching the issues and challenges that are present in our community, making sure that we have all the correct ordinances and that we're executing things from our different departments as best we can. And sometimes I can certainly say that things don't move as quickly as I'd like to see things do, because when you're
Right.
within any government entity, I mean, we're made up of 7 people on council, and we are a city in Texas is a corporation. That is what it is. So the city council is the board of directors. The mayor is the chairman of the board. And in Beaumont, we have a chief executive officer who is the city manager, who executes the vision and the budget that we pass as a council. And we provide oversight over that, but we don't directly direct employees.
Right.
That is done through our executive team that is hired by the council.
Well, very good. Thanks for explaining that. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are going to appreciate that explanation.
Sure.
And not to redirect you too badly about where we were headed before, but I'm going to ask a question about your sister.
Sure.
She's 3 years older. Is that what you said?
3.5 years old.
3.5 years older. Well, I just so happen to share a similar distance between my sister and myself, except I'm the older.
All right.
All right. So I'm curious about the dynamic between you and your sister, since you're the baby. Was there, how did y'all get along in y'all's home growing up?
Fine. I think I annoyed her a lot.
That's your job as the baby.
So, wanting to hang out with her and her friends. But, I mean, once I got to an age where I had my own friends, it was really a whole lot less of it. So I think, in my very early years, I was a bit of an annoyance.
Right.
And then as we moved into our teenage years, she was old enough to kind of keep an eye on me, which I kind of resented. But we still have a great relationship to this day.
Good, because that's where I was going. I was going to ask how that
was. Was that a commission from her chief executives, like keep an eye on your brother?
Well, it probably had a role in that, being a grandparent and parent now. But I think too, it's that when you're a family, you like to make sure that your family is behaving. So you kind of keep an eye on things, and if you feel like somebody's making a wrong turn, and I know during my teenage years that I would press the limits a few times, and she'd be the first one to throw me under the bus.
Well, y'all both had a job to do.
That's right. That's right.
That was her job.
That was
your job.
Fair
and y'all had to
enough.
be good at your job.
That's it. You're not wrong on that.
You're carrying on a long tradition of siblings everywhere.
So now, of course, this is one of my most curious is obviously you had a very healthy, effective family, and I love that. And the fruit of that, you and your sister doing great. Your beautiful family that's mostly here, but there has to be the response team, and that's going to be parents. So what was discipline like in your home?
Well, my father handled most of the discipline, because that was back when you would still get whippings with a belt. So my mom wasn't really effective at that. So my father, wait till your father got home. I would hear that when I was growing up.
Yes.
But, it was expectations were that I behaved, that I did good in school. And and I think they gave me the good moral background that I needed. So I have nothing but fond memories from my childhood, which is a real blessing. Because as you get older, you realize that there's too many people that don't have those experiences.
Right. Well, you're kind of referring to influencing the upcoming generation, even in our city, and love, resources, and accountability, is a big part of it.
Absolutely.
And so, obviously, having grown up with a nice mix of that, as well as probably your friend group, we all kind of had similar.
Sure, that's right.
That makes that an easy thing to reflect and to lead, and so good for them.
Isn't it fascinating how when we're kids, especially those of us who grew up in a corporal punishment environment, I got my butt whooped lots. In fact, I got whoopings at school and then when I got home. In fact, I can remember my first grade teacher, Miss Collier. I remember her so well because she swung that paddle so well. That was at Roy West Elementary, by the way. And then my kindergarten teacher, Miss Haynes, I can remember her, bless her heart. She, in the age she was when I came through her class, she would pass me off to Miss Collier to go,
she was
to go.
well skilled at it.
Yeah, so
I understand.
I would delegate those to those who were well fitted to whoop me, and then when I got home, I got the double.
That's right. Yeah, no, that I went to school during a time when corporal punishment was alive.
Oh yeah.
So,
and it's funny how we look back on that now. We in the moment, it was terrible.
Right.
We were victims, right? We hated it, but now we look back on it, and that's not how we think of it at all. You don't look back and think you almost died.
No, that's right. And I would agree with that. And I think it was such a different world for so many people that are growing up, which I see situations that certainly break my heart.
Yes. Yes, I can attest to that. My wife and I are adoptive parents, and we've had kids from emergency situations placed with us that just break your heart, and we see things like that around us all the time. Right. So, when you were a kid growing up, what did you think you wanted to be? Like, what was your dream?
Batman. Even ironically, I ended up getting a sociology degree from Lamar University, and when I graduated, I just knew I wanted to graduate and be an adult. And so it wasn't like I had a lifelong dream to be in law enforcement. With a sociology degree, there's limited opportunities, and this was 1983. The economy in Texas wasn't thriving. So now I really enjoyed law enforcement. So I have no regrets, but I didn't, when I was growing up, whereas many of my adult children now did have aspirations that they followed. I wasn't one of those that, knew exactly what I wanted to do and executed that.
And I think that at least in our profession, we see people who go through high school, don't know what they want to do. Right. Go into college, really don't know what they want to do. Get their 2-year degree, still don't know what they want to do. 4-year degree, and they're about to enter into the world because they're bored or tired of being in school. And they want to be an adult, like you said, but they still don't know what they want to be or who they want to become. Well, that's the common. It's not the common to know what you want to do and then pursue it immediately.
Right. I think that's right. And I think I'm 63 now, and I'm still wondering what's next.
And that's amazing, though. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to realize that there's never a shortage of opportunity.
That's right. And every day is a gift from God, and I look at it that way, and I'm grateful for the opportunities. And I've certainly had a lot more opportunities than I would have ever expected. I've had careers I never expected I would have had, or and whenever I talk to young people now, I often tell them, the career that you may have 5 years from now, 10 years, may not even exist right now.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, part of it is just learning, being educated, learning how to learn.
Yeah.
Being willing to be, pliable,
training your mind to stay curious.
Right. It's everybody wants change and everybody hates change.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And it's it really is, because the more you embrace change, the people that I see most effective at succeeding in areas understand the change is going to occur and can respond to it.
That's right.
People that I see that struggle more in a business type environment resist change more, because it's always happening, and especially in a time with technology being what it is, and how we communicate. I mean, with technology, the newer generations aren't near as effective at communicating. You can complain about it, but you still have to figure out how to communicate with them if you want to have a relationship with them and understand their wants and needs.
Right.
I'll agree with you. And one of our biggest hurdles and opportunities for growth is figuring out the next way we're going to communicate, because we don't really, with all this social media and technology that we have right now, we figured it out faster than we figured out how we're going to adapt to really effectively beyond it. And I mean, you illustrated that point
Well,
distinctly there.
yeah. I mean, I think with text and social media, you don't get facial expressions, you don't get tone, and oftentimes with kids growing up, uh, and I worry about it with my grandkids, or I'm aware of it. And socializing is just so important to be engaged with other and learn how to get along with other people, team sports and other things,
Right.
even if you're not good at it. And I always played athletics. And I was never a very good athlete, but you learn how to relate to others,
Right.
and you find your place in a team, and depending on where you are in life and what station you're in, those but if you're gonna be more successful, if you're gonna learn to take the next step, you have to learn along the way, and you have to watch those around you and watch the ones that are leading and figure out, well, what is it they're doing here? What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? And so I still learn that often.
So when you were, let's say, leaving college, and you like, but going through that whole thing, even in your late in your teens, going through high school, did you have a mentor, anybody that you looked at, or maybe a few of them that were heavy influences on your life that kind of helped build your character and
Yes.
how to be the man that you are?
My dad played a big role in that, and then I started playing tennis in late junior high, early high school, and there was a man that was in his 60s that was real into tennis named Clark Fippen, and he ended up playing. He was a very successful businessman, and he kind of took me under his wing, and with he had a tennis court at his house, so I, I got to play a lot of tennis, and but he had a real strong work ethic, and he was one that taught you to expect nothing, that you had to earn it, and
That's a big principle.
it really is, and in today's world where our culture tells us you deserve more all the time.
The entire
Through advertising,
culture, that's
it. And it's from the television shows you watch, and from everything that engages in, that can set an expectation of disappointment in life.
absolutely
And I know
victim's mentality.
that's
Yeah.
and for me, my greatest joy is the work. It's rarely it's not, victories are nice, but they're going to be fleeting. It's knowing what you're doing every day, and knowing that, every day I get up, I know what I need to do, and make sure that I don't get distracted from the mission of what it is that I've set forth to do. Because, and in this role, it can be easier to do. When you run for office, there's certain things you want to accomplish.
Right.
When you get elected, you have a lot of people telling you about real problems. Well, you can't do everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you've got to stay. But it takes a little learning, because
Yes.
your phone rings a lot, and to stay focused, that there are certain things that you've got to get done every day. And if you do have, which hopefully you would, have objectives, you need to be the one measuring yourself that whether you're getting there or not.
And you have to learn people of all walks, elected or not, no matter what their
Absolutely.
profession or pursuit is. They have to learn that success comes through sacrifice. And that sacrifice is represented by a balance that you have to create with your priorities. So, like you said, when people come to you with these real problems, you have to realize that you can't take all of them on at once. Some of them are going to have to be put as secondary, third, fourth, fifth, farther down the list of priorities, whereas other ones are first, and that's one of the toughest things about success, about achievement, about accomplishment, is that in
Right.
order to achieve anything, you have to learn how to balance the sacrifice to attain the achievement.
Well, exactly. And oftentimes you hear people telling, young people you can do anything you want to do. That's just not true.
No, it's
you
not.
you have to pick what you want to do, and with that you're going to make sacrifices. There's
That's
going to
it.
be many other things you cannot do, and there is nobody but you that gets to decide what those look like. And you see people that make mistakes and have regrets, and I certainly have had regrets and I've made mistakes, but fortunately on the bigger ones, I feel like I've stayed true to who I am.
And that's the best we can do as people is stay true to our integrity and our character and hold fast to our
Right.
convictions. That's
Right.
it's all we can do.
Right.
So I applaud you for that.
Yes,
That's very
as men, we all, and like ladies too, but we're reaching that certain age and stage where we're the ones that folks come to us
Right.
and ask us questions and want our influence and our advice. But I know I still have people that I go to. I know Rob does because he and I talk about it a lot. Are there still people in here like, would you just as winning the election? Well, that's like a whole new chapter in the book that is Roy West. So do you have folks that you still look to? And you don't have to name names, but I'm sure
Right.
they're aspirational people that I can reach out to maybe feedback and those things.
Well, yes, and certainly as I've grown older, I mean, I'm a person of faith, so every day when I wake up, I know who I'm going to be serving.
There you go.
And so oftentimes,
And what's her name, by the way?
so so oftentimes, ironically, when people tell me, I know that's tough. Most things really aren't that tough. Sometimes my heart hurts for circumstances, but my direction's usually pretty clear. Uh, so, and I know, so people of faith are people that I trust, and those are in most all cases are people that I've known for a long time who have been that have been people that I have seen make difficult life transitions, and that I had respect for, and that were true to their faith. So that whenever I would talk to them or need encouragement, and I would say it's oftentimes probably a combination of uh, challenges that appear to be more complex, and then uh, just needing encouragement because sometimes you're making decisions that are painful for others, and
Yes.
and you never take pleasure in that.
And if you're a servant leader, which you are, I know you are, you carry with you this empathetic spirit. And if it hurts them, it hurts you too by its very nature.
Right, and I think most people, I know the council that I serve with, I believe everybody on council loves the city of Beaumont, loves the people of Beaumont.
I hope
that
so.
that was why they ran, and so, but to that point, when you decide to get in the fray and be on council, there comes the time that you have to make decisions, and although the decision may be clear to you on what you need to do, you understand the layers of it and the challenges it's going to create for others. And so many of our life circumstances, uh, I've been blessed just by having parents that stayed married, that loved one another, that raised me. I've had a lot of really positive experiences by the grace of God that I didn't really have anything to do with. So, and there are people that don't have those experiences, and that's tragic, and it breaks my heart for them. But it doesn't make certain behavior okay.
No, that's very true. Well, since you brought up positive experiences that you had little to do with, I'm going to bring up someone that God brought into your life.
Okay.
I noticed your big nice ring on your left ring finger.
Uh-huh.
So tell us about your wife.
Okay. Well, Trisha and I have been married since 2012.
I like the way you answered that. We train our guests to answer that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
We made the mistake early on in our show of asking men, specifically men, how long have you been married?
Right.
Oh, what a tragic question to ask a man.
Right.
The right answer is we've been married since.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
anyway, keep going.
So that's exactly I did.
Yeah.
And so So I have 2 biological children and 3 bonus daughters. And my first wife died of breast cancer in 1999. And and my kids were 8 and 11 at that point. And Trisha and I started dating in '09, and we got married in 2012 after my son had gotten out of the house. And because her girls were younger than my kids, and they all were moving in the house. So and having, seen people blend families and have kids under the same roof, I knew that that would be a challenge, and that I didn't want them to have to go through after loss. And but we all are one happy family now. I mean, it's there's enough of an age spread that the oldest is 37 and the youngest is 26. So there's between my youngest and my oldest bonus daughter, there's 3 years.
Okay.
So, so there was never the competition.
That's good.
And
That's very good.
they get along well, and so we've been real blessed. We really have been. So yeah, and Trisha is an introvert. So getting with me was a little bit out of her comfort zone, but I think
it's valid.
the whole opposites attract is a real thing. So, and as my life progressed, and I decided for this opportunity to run for mayor, presented itself. I mean, it was a real serious conversation I had with her because
Absolutely.
I wanted her to have peace about it. And it was something that she prayed about and found peace. And I know it's harder for her because being an introvert, I kind of get energy. Well, I don't kind of get energy. I do get energy from people.
Absolutely.
And I think introverts, people take a little bit more energy from them.
That's right.
And Trisha is attends a lot of things with me, but she gets to miss some too. Taking care of grandkids.
So how has she become, obviously, because you're very proud of your relationship with her, how has she become a good balance then, other than just the personality type, to be able to do all of these public things similar to what we're doing now, and then knowing you're coming home to the things that she's taken care of?
Well, exactly. I mean, I would say, being a man of faith, I know every day who I serve, but my family is very important to me, and being together and showing up for one another is very important. And she does a great job of doing that. And I will say, we have now 10 grandkids, and grandkids aren't aware of bonus status.
Right.
All they've known is who they've known.
That's
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And so it's a real blessing that and it's funny because my first wife passed away 25 years ago, so there are people that knew me with Cynthia, and actually the county judge Jeff Brannick, who and I were brother-in-laws. We traveled together as families, his wife and my wife, and his wife was my first wife's sister. So we still refer to each other as in-laws, and yet we still spend holidays together, and ever since Trisha's been a part of the family. So
that's beautiful.
That is.
It's unique again, but it speaks to their character too, because we've all always had a good relationship, and so like I say, my life's been better than I deserve. So much better than I deserve.
That speaks to your character, though, like the way all that plays out with your in-laws,
right,
and everything. And let me just say, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
Truly, you can see and hear the love in you for both of them. I have a grandfather who's in a very unique situation. He has been married 3 times, never been divorced.
Wow.
So it's a unique. He's actually been a guest on here. He's a World War II veteran.
Wow.
And all of that, and he loved with all his heart each one of them.
Yes.
Yeah, grew up here, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. So he rode the mule into Beaumont.
That's right. That's right. So, how did you meet Trish?
I met her at Jeff Brannick's first fundraiser.
Wow.
Yeah, in '09 in October at Ford Park. So I was greeting people, and I greeted her when she came in. So it's it's a small world. Of course, it's Beaumont.
But you also serve a good God. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
obviously, he realized that there was some balance that he could bring to your life
Yeah.
with
Absolutely.
this special lady.
Yes.
And did y'all like just become friends, or how did that?
Yeah, we did, and you know, we probably started dating in 2010, and probably you know, after being with her about a year, I realized that I wanted to marry her.
Yeah.
And but I also wanted to allow I just I wasn't looking forward at the idea of trying to blend households. So but it all worked out the way it was supposed to, I believe.
Well, both of you were committed to the cause.
That's right.
You created a united
Mhm.
front about the circumstance.
Mhm.
So that's what made it a success.
Yeah, if I've learned anything as likewise a man of faith, I don't doubt the providence, because if there's a plan, it's going to just present itself.
Right.
And there you were, you know, greeting fellow
Right.
citizens showing up to a fundraiser,
That's it.
and your life changed
Mhm.
indefinitely.
It did.
And and those children too, you know.
Yeah.
So how about that? You know, but I love the concept of the whole brotherly kindness. I was just going over a passage just this morning on the phone with a friend, and she's going to be leading a class, and we were doing Second Peter chapter 1, and it's that list of, you know, add to your faith, goodness, your goodness, and all that. But it gets down to the bottom, and it's brotherly kindness, which is like loving your people. These are
Right.
my people. These are the ones God gave me, so I'm gonna love them as well as I can. And then the last one is just love everybody. You know,
Right.
which is a lot of kind of that more community-wide, global
Right.
type thinking. Like, how can we love on the people that are our neighbors? I don't know them. I will never know them personally, but I'm sure there's some way I can enrich their life. You know, and it seems like you're really committed to that, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So how long have you been mayor now?
Since May, well, I was elected May 6th. I was sworn in on the 16th of May, 2023. So it's been about 17 months. And so you serve for a 2-year term. And matter of fact, I keep a daily counter on my phone of how many days are left. And I've got to get to my lock screen for the show.
Mm.
It's it'll make a liar out of me every time. 217 days
Okay.
until the next mayor sworn in, whether it's myself or whoever
It may be.
You know, and part of that is, you know, I've done ongoing training, and you know, it's about remembering every day that today's important.
Absolutely.
What you do today matters, and oftentimes we get a little bit, or we can be a little bit too focused on what's coming, and we've got to plan for the future, and we've got to have a vision, and we certainly work at that at the city, and I've worked at it in my businesses and with my family, but what you do today makes such an impact on it, and
Well, this moment belongs to you.
that's right.
The past is finished. You can't go back and pick it up. And tomorrow is not guaranteed.
That's
But
exactly.
this moment you own.
That's it.
I appreciate that
Yeah.
that outlook.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I asked you the question about your length of time in office because I'm segueing to this next two question series. So what's your favorite thing about being mayor?
Boy, that's a hard one. Being mayor is an incredible opportunity, and because you get to, I get to see God show off every day. So that's probably the best part of being mayor.
I love the way you put that.
Yeah, me too.
There are, you know, people see in the media and social media, and you know, they see the challenges that we face, but I go across the city often, and I get to see people doing incredibly kind acts for others without any for no other reason other than, you know, most all of them are Christians. You know, they do it out of a need to serve, a desire to serve, and they don't want any recognition. And I learned early on in life, and I guess something I learned in law enforcement that or became more apparent is I like, when there's a problem, I'm interested in it. I like to go to the problem. And now it's not always fun going to a problem, but what I learned is most people are running away from problems. So there can be opportunities.
That's right.
If you go to them. And in law enforcement, one of the first things you do is you're going into situations people are trying to get away from. And so and so I learned in that there could be, you know, it was a real privilege to get to show up in difficult situations in people's lives because how you respond to them can make a difference. It can
Absolutely.
certainly make a terrible day not as bad for them. And most of the time when police are showing up, it's usually not in the circumstances that people would prefer, whether they were in an accident, whether it was a crime, whether it's domestic,
Whatever the case may be.
whatever it is, people aren't at their best. And
No.
you're often not seeing people at their best. So whenever I left law enforcement and got into business, I always saw wherever there was turmoil, I'd always look a little bit closer to see where opportunities might be, and not so much to be able to monetize it, but just to see where I might be able to help. It wasn't. I didn't understand until it got to be a little bit later that that other people weren't as inquisitive about that. But to this day, whenever I go to situations, oftentimes I may be at the front of the room, but I'm watching the sides of the room to see what's happening and who's making that happen. And so like I say, I get to see God show up a lot.
That's amazing. So you answered that very well. This is the harder part of it.
Okay.
What's your least favorite thing about being mayor?
I haven't found a thing that I don't like about being mayor. I mean, there's decisions I've been a part of that have hurt my heart because I knew it was difficult for the city. So, and I love the city. So that's hard, but I didn't wish that I wasn't having to make the decision.
Right.
So I can't say that there's been any part of it that I haven't been grateful for. But much like growing up and much like having kids and much like having grandkids, being married, it doesn't mean that it's always easy. And having an expectation that life's easy, I think can be really negative for people because there's always going to be trials and tribulations. There's going to be challenges that you maybe wouldn't put on the game board of life to have to deal with, but how you deal with them will dictate what comes next in life.
They provide your opportunity, just like you were saying a minute ago.
There's a course and there's a conclusion.
Right.
So if people are coming to you looking for a conclusion, I presume that this is what I'm hearing. I appreciate the systematic process that you have to say, well, maybe we should let's talk about the course,
right?
And so we'll give a conclusion a chance. And as a leader, especially of a city that's very fluid, we've got a major thoroughfare coming through here.
Right.
We have lots of folks coming in and out. We're expanding. There's all kind of things going on. As far as articulating the course to people so that they can understand it better because they're so passionate about the conclusion. Do you have a preferred way of doing that? Is it through asking questions or through inquiry or maybe just presenting?
You have to listen a lot, and I think that is something that I've continued to learn. But whenever you get into the political world, letting people tell you how they feel about things is important, and we certainly do it at council meetings. And it's funny because I'll have friends or I'll have and my wife's asked me because sometimes I get asked or I get approached about some difficult situations, and they said, well, what'd you tell them? I said, well, I just told them I'd be praying for them, that sometimes there's not an answer that I can give them that they would like to hear. I mean, they are looking for a solution, just it's not available to me either.
Right.
And there are injustices in this world, and there's and of course there's processes for everything, and I'm one in my life that I've learned how important all processes are. I trust processes, even when they fail. I trust them.
Right.
Because I realize that's the only way we can get from point A to point B, and you need a process to be able to follow.
Right. Which, thank you. You mentioned a word that kind of hopefully segues into another section of our interviews, and that is your best definition of the presence of failure, and then maybe later we'll get into the presence of success. So the presence of failure, and I think we've all had it.
Right.
And how has that become? What's your perception of it, and how's that become maybe an advantage for you?
Oh, I would say my failures have made me a much better person. I've learned a whole lot more from my failures than I have my successes.
Yeah.
It's, whether it's with, family, whether it's with business, whether it's with, from political, I mean, it's just life to me. When you make decisions that don't go the way you thought they would go, I learned from that, and sometimes it's been painful, but also I know what's most painful is when you make decisions that go badly for other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot easier to get over your own pain than it is for being a part of someone else's. So I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to be mayor in this season of life, because for me, I don't ever take anything personal, and I do trust God, and I trust the process. But in that, it means listening and being willing to know from where I begin in this process to where I end may look different.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does.
Right. Right. It certainly does. What I thought was going to be
Right.
the grand conclusion is not the way it turned out.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then how to cope with that, with those
Well,
consequences.
look at where you are. I mean, when you graduated college with a sociology degree,
Right.
you didn't plan to go into law enforcement, and when you went into law enforcement, you never probably imagined yourself as mayor of Beaumont.
I really probably as recently as 10 years ago, wouldn't have imagined myself as as mayor of Beaumont. It wasn't. It was really. It was through having my son-in-law get involved in my business, and him doing better and freeing my time up, and I began by getting more involved as a business partner in the public school system and seeing the challenges in our community that way. And I just felt like I'd been, God had, there's a certain amount of, you got to have a certain amount of confidence or arrogance to think you deserve to be mayor. And I don't know how to put that nicely, because whenever I first started thinking about it, you certainly, I had never, hadn't served on council. So the idea that what really qualified me to be mayor, but I thought, well, it's something I prayed about a lot, and God gave me some peace. And, it's interesting to begin on a journey that, the first time I ran for mayor, I lost, which was, again, an incredible experience. I'm glad I had it, and if you would have asked me at that time, it wouldn't have been an experience that I would have preferred to have, but I think it made me a better mayor the second time that I ran and got elected, because I learned something from that. And so I still continue to learn, and I know that I will, as long as my mind's working, because I'm gonna I want to be a better person than I was yesterday.
There you go.
You said something there. You said you don't know if it's arrogance or what was the other thing?
Confidence.
Confidence. But here's what I think those two words, I wouldn't call it arrogance. I think you felt responsible. If I had to speculate based on our conversations and the way I've seen you live your life, I think you felt a responsibility to yourself, to your community, and to God for.
Right.
I mean, He created you with the mind He gave you. He created you with the pattern of life that you've lived. You've survived to this point for a purpose.
Right.
And then you felt responsible. He laid that desire on your heart, which then created a responsibility for a calling.
Well,
Here you are.
right, and you've articulated that a lot better than me. I mean, both times that I ran, I didn't know if I could win. I mean, it wasn't something that but I felt like it was what I was supposed to do.
That's a calling.
And to put yourself out there, uh, you have to remind yourself, because you're navigating waters you've never navigated before, and the political world is a lot different than the business world. And municipalities, any government is a lot different than the business world just because of the way it functions. And so, learning your way through that, it's a constant, there's always a constant learning curve.
There's no map that you can just look
No.
at and say, "Oh, well, we'll go from here to there.
Yeah.
This is the road to get there." It's not.
That's right.
It's not like Google. It's not like. It's
Right.
not like that at all. You can't follow the blue
Right.
line.
Right.
Yeah. So I might even actually purge the word arrogance, and I know we were searching for words,
Right.
but because that just almost brings an entitlement that I already have the ideal conclusion.
Right.
But your answer really more said, I'm wanting to build confidence in this
Right.
job. And
Right.
so I don't mind the questions. I don't mind the curiosity. I don't even mind the doubts, because that just motivates me to go find conclusions.
My argument against your statement of arrogance is that everything else you've said, everything else that I've seen about you or watched you do at all, has been with humility.
Indeed.
In order for a person to live and behave with humility, you must not have arrogance.
Well, I appreciate y'all's kind words, and I do think it's important to have a good bit of humility if you do this job, because, or any career that from being a parent, is you've got to do the best that at that time, but continue to learn, and as y'all have brought up about mentors, having mentors in your life and being a mentor as you grow older and you're able to help others, because you realize you made some mistakes that you wouldn't want to see your kids make or other people coming up, and oftentimes they may still have to make them, but maybe they won't make them as badly.
That's right.
Right.
So
Maybe you can steer them through it
right,
Yeah.
to help mitigate the pain a little bit.
exactly.
So this is a big question. Are you successful?
Well,
Do you consider yourself successful?
from the standpoint of yes, I'm grateful every day for the opportunities that I have and that I'm showing up for those opportunities. So there is more that I want to do, but I certainly recognize that I have been blessed beyond measure with the opportunities that I've been given, and that I don't deserve any of them. That I don't, I didn't deserve to get to be elected mayor. And oftentimes when people, because people say a lot of flattering things to you, but as you point out, tomorrow's not guaranteed.
That's right.
So, being the best that you can be today, and is important, but the success is that's a great question, and it's making me the success is in the work for me, is knowing that I've showed up and done what I needed to do, even when it doesn't get the results that I would that I thought I was after at the beginning of it.
You just brought up an interesting point. If you don't mind, I'm going to capitalize on it just a little bit.
Okay.
We call our practice pursuit of purpose. And a lot of times I'll ask people, what do you think's more important, the pursuit or the purpose? And you just illustrated it through what you just said. The pursuit is where the value is built.
Right.
Right? The journey is where you learn life. The purpose is just the direction.
Right.
And it may change before you ever get to the one you set out for.
Right.
So the pursuit is where the value lies.
Your point on there.
So
Yeah.
go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to say, yeah, and what I'm hearing a little bit, and as a compliment, obviously to your folks, who you give a ton of credit to. Your dad, with his early profession, and he transformed into a new profession, and your mom, and those things, is you definitely bring that occupational spirit to an otherwise kind of a prestigious position. That folks would, because mayor has a very, it's a several 100-year-old title, if not thousands, if you go back to Europe. We all know what those are. And you get the distinction of being one of those people in the history of this city.
Right.
But to bring an occupational spirit, I hope that that's something that you're encouraging even those around you who may think aspirationally, say, well, leading is good and achieving is good and titles are okay too, but you don't need to have titleitis.
Right.
It's about occupational.
Title-itis.
Yeah, I made that one up. You like that?
That's a good one. I like, and we got it.
And we
for the
recorded
audience.
it.
Yeah, that's good.
You're welcome.
I know. I like that.
You're welcome to use that.
And
by the way.
and that's the other thing interesting, because I'm quick to point out, and when I ran for mayor, I do it full time, but it is a part-time job.
Officially.
Right. And the reason I qualify that is sometimes people criticize others.
Right.
But people have to make a living, and depending on what season of life in, I'm not in a time where I'm raising kids. We get to spend a lot of time with our grandchildren, but my responsibilities with that, I still have a business, but my son-in-law manages the day-to-day of that. So it gives me an opportunity that not everybody has.
Yeah.
And so it's not a fair comparison to everybody, and I certainly appreciate that. But I didn't run for mayor because I always wanted to be mayor.
Yeah.
I wanted a better Beaumont.
Right.
So
You felt responsible.
I felt like that role would give me the opportunity to help facilitate that.
Yes. Yes.
So ironically, I can't say that it was ever about becoming mayor, but again, that's been a real blessing that I would have never guessed would have been as enjoyable as it has been.
That's wonderful. And through that role, those previous goals can now be pursued even better.
That's exactly that's right.
Because I'm sitting in a chair that has certain persuasions.
Sure.
There you go. That's good.
So I want you to hear something. This is important, and for our audience to understand that none of this is scripted. Chuck and I do write out our questions ahead of time, but none of our guests ever get to see the questions ahead of time. They don't know what we're going to ask them. So this is not set up or intended to just be flattering. Okay, I want you to know that you do that on your own. You present your case, and you've done it very well. So I'm going to ask you. This is a hard question to answer. What separates a success from a failure? What's the difference? You've had a lot of business dealings with yourself, with a lot of other people. You deal with people every day, and you see people in success or in failure. And what separates the two?
Wow, that's a great question. And the easy answer, I don't know that is the right answer here.
There is no wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
It's perspective.
right. But when it comes to success and failures, I think you can completely not reach your desired accomplishment and it be a success.
I agree 100%.
And but the world wouldn't necessarily, in terms of people that are looking at it. So, I think the gift of showing up every day is where the success lies. You've got to show up. You've got to take care of yourself. I know for myself, there's usually, well, there's not usually, there's always more than I can do
Absolutely.
as mayor, which was unique because I'd come from a world that I was able to control quite a bit better. Now there's a lot of things that I just don't control. And, but like, I've found that I still have to make time, quiet time, time that for reflection and to study the Word of God, actually, because it allows me to get centered. Because if there's certain things I don't do, I'm not going to be near as effective in my. So learning what it is that I have to do every day is or be faithful to is I consider a success. And I guess the failures are whenever I drop the ball on something that in reflection I knew that I should have done better on. That and and I give myself a good bit of grace. God was certainly very gracious, but when I've been taught things before and then didn't apply it when the time came, those are those failures. But also, the from what the world sees as my failures, sometimes those were successes for me.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And I mean, typically you're that's great. We simplify it and we say, a failure is somebody who quit
right,
and a success is somebody who didn't.
right,
Regardless,
right,
your outcome may look different than you wanted, just like you said, but you head out every day with the determination that whatever happens by the end of the day, I won't quit
right, right.
and I'll keep going. So I commend you for that and thank you for that explanation.
I like the also, as Rob, I was preparing another question, but I like the idea of developing these habits, these personal habits that have now created this habitat of success. That I absolutely know as we as self-disciplined men, that if I don't keep these habits in place, starting my day, middle of my day, end of my day, then those other possibilities aren't even going to see fruition.
Right.
Yeah, because I haven't done those things. And when I've neglected them, weirdly enough, I think that's what I felt it all day. I'm like, hey, well,
Yeah.
I jumped out of bed and took off running.
Right.
And I could have taken that 15 minutes or what have you,
Right.
but I don't like that feeling of regret long.
Right.
Before I get back to my discipline.
Very well said.
That quiet time is often built to build your internal momentum so that your external doesn't lose direction.
Perfect.
And I commend you for that. That's a big thing for leaders. So right now, many people who in American history and world history who have attained what they call success were past the age of 60. Many people reinvented themselves even past 70 and created world-changing success, culture-changing things that happened in their lives they caused after the age of 70. So I said that for the foundation of this question.
Okay.
I'm going to make a bet that you currently still have ambitions, that you currently still have dreams, hopes, goals, and intentions. Would you like to talk about any of that?
Well, I do. And certainly right now there's more work that needs to be done here in Beaumont. So, I would like to continue to pursue that and also help develop, uh, new leaders to come along. And, I think we're in a transitional time, and we're always in a transitional time.
That's fact.
But to be able to recognize it and to not hold on to things too tightly, and and to be willing to make and I think one of the privileges of getting older and being the age that I am now, and if trying to take care of my health and to see whatever days that come before me, is you understand that when you're younger, you're raising a family, and there's you're thinking about all the things that can go wrong, I guess, or you worry about them, and the world reminds you, and or you're aware of it, and there's more uncertainty. The more life you lived, the more you realize what you can navigate through, and some of your greatest fears you may have dealt with and survived. And so, I think that gives you additional freedom, additional uh, confidence in the time that you're given and the opportunities that you're given and how you're going to respond to them.
So I think that was a great answer, and I think what I heard you say is that your next ambition is to remain as a servant for Beaumont as mayor. Your hope is that you will continue and be reelected currently. What about personally? Like you've got these grandkids, you've got a wife, you've got a big family. Do you have any personal aspirations that would inspire other people, or even let your family know, you know, he really does want that for us? That's amazing.
Well, clearly, having your grandkids and your children to be in relationship with God and to grow in that relationship is of really importance. But oftentimes when people say that, it that's not real tangible. And I think it is through life experiences. It's through actions. I mean, love is a verb. It doesn't. It's not real until people see that you actually love them.
That's right.
And we throw that out a lot, and so I think showing your family that you love them and supporting them and showing up for them is equally is as important as anything that I do in life. And I certainly wouldn't. I don't ever put them in second place. But it is balancing everything. So I don't feel like I'm really answering your question, but
Well, you put value on them, and you verbalize that they are your highest priority
well,
with balance, and that's a big answer. I mean,
So whatever comes next will be them.
right. I mean, when you look at the longer you get to live, you realize, who was mayor 30 years ago, or who, a lot of this isn't relevant. I mean, it's not going to matter in the future,
Right.
but the impact that you have on those that are around you, and certainly your family, and how you help form them or support them through that, it helps them continue to grow and be the people that can support others, the children and grandchildren and great grandchildren.
Right.
So, and investing in that. And, and that's where I see when you get to serve in a capacity as mayor or on council, is, we were talking about earlier, I have a lot of guardrails in my life, to keep me, to remind me where I need to be at any given time. And I think, and we as a city need to do that for others that are in difficult situations.
Right.
That, we've made decisions within this. We've taken some steps that some people would say, well, that doesn't seem Christian, and to me it seems very Christian. But it's a matter of perspective, because oftentimes you don't get to share all your thoughts on things.
it's easy to judge something that you're not involved in. It's easy to judge something that you don't have stake in too.
Right.
So I'm not going to say this is the last big question, but it's because it's not. But this, I mean, we're getting close to the
Okay.
end. What's your legacy? Because as you said, mayor, you don't know who was
Right.
mayor 30 years ago.
Right.
This is just one element in the meal that was created from all the ingredients that you've put into your life. Okay? So your legacy is bigger than being mayor.
Oh, being the husband, being the father, being the grandfather. I mean, those roles, being a man of God. Those are the legacies that matter. And so many people do that well, and as when I referred earlier, getting to see God show off, is I just happen to be in a position that gets more exposure, and but it's certainly not any more significant than what many people do every day.
That was a great answer.
Yep.
I mean, all the things you said, and then you put the cherry on top of the cake by saying a man of God.
Yeah.
Everything else just rests nice underneath that. That was a beautiful answer. Chuck, would you like to?
No, I do appreciate that answer, and also just appreciate that as your absolute position. If that's my absolute position, whatever happens next, it really isn't up to me.
Right.
Because once that's my initial influence, then I feel very confident that I will carry that influence to everything, whether you're sitting having coffee with your wife or
Right.
watching a ball game in the heat with a grandkid. It doesn't matter, or making a difficult decision that is going to have. Somebody's going to have a moment of uncomfortable as a
Right.
result of this decision. Well, it's not my intent is not for that. My
Right.
intent is to serve well under that original pretense. And so that's an ideal message for an audience. And when we have a lot of folks that tune in, and they get to hear that as a reiteration. So thank you for that.
Well, thank y'all for doing this show.
Yeah, we thank you for being our guest. Now we're almost through.
Okay.
We're right there. We're real close. What's the definition of a leader? Your definition. I'm not looking for Webster's. You've been a follower through your life. You've had to be. And through that, you have become a leader.
Trying to think of something really profound to say. I heard something once: when you wrestle a gorilla, you don't you don't stop wrestling until the gorilla gets tired.
Yeah.
And it's and I think a leader is you keep showing up, and you keep showing up even when it's difficult to show up, and I think for people, it can't be about you. It's got to be about something greater than you.
No, that's
So-
beautiful.
Yeah.
So for me, serving God, knowing that I'm gonna continue to be faithful to Him regardless of the consequences, as I can see them. He doesn't give me the freedom not to be present in the role that I've had the privilege to be a part of right now, whether it's mayor, whether it's husband, whether it's father, whether it's grandfather, whether it's mortgage lender, whether it's commercial real estate investor, whatever it is.
And understand, we know that these questions are not easy to answer because they're so open. But you did very well. Those are wonderful answers.
Thank you.
And you stay a leader even when the shine wears off, I think, is basically what you were saying. You were faithful to the position that you've been given. We appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So we ask a question. This will be the last hard one.
All right.
We ask a question of everybody who comes on this show. This exact question, the same way every time. It's how we work to the close. If you could go back in time to let's say your high school self, before you got your sociology degree, and you could whisper in your ear and give yourself some advice, what would you tell yourself?
What would I tell myself? Just show up. Just be the person you have to be. I think as you're growing up, we can be influenced by outside sources, and whether it's through work or family, friends, all of those things can be challenging for people. But that comes from a position of being loved and knowing whose I am. For people that don't know that, but I would say when I was in high school, I didn't have that clarity. So there was and now, so that would be what I'd say. I don't know that my high school self would have received it very well.
If he knew it was you telling him, he might have.
All right, probably not.
So
Based on my kids.
That's it for the hard question.
All right.
This is the final question I'm going to ask, and then I'll let Chuck finish. If you had to, or if you could, what advice would you give to anyone who aspires to enter into this type of a field as a politician or a public servant in any way, run for office? Is there any advice you'd give them?
Yes, get involved in with the local community, whether it's the city government, whether it's the school board, and listen. You've got to certainly be willing to listen, and you've got to. Oftentimes, we begin things. I know for me, well, that's the only frame of reference I have. Is you know, I may think I know where something's going, and certainly in this position there I've had more surprises just because my windshield's gotten a lot bigger in life. I've gotten exposed to a lot more. I mean, oftentimes we the church that we're a part of, like I visit churches, different churches every Sunday. I have a home church, but I visit churches. I go to a lot of different communities, a lot of different community events. So I'm exposed to a whole lot more than I was for many decades. Very intentionally, I'm doing it, and a little bit of that gets you, you know, it can be uncomfortable at times, especially when you first begin.
Yeah.
But it's now it's kind of I really enjoy doing it. I foresee that I'll continue to visit lots of churches, even though I love my home church. But it's a great way to worship, be with other people. But you've got to really try to connect with the community and hear their needs, because what you think their needs are may not be that.
That's right.
And be willing to be changed, and and hopefully have clear reason on why you think you ought to lead.
That's very good. Profound.
Very.
Very. I hope if there's anybody in our audience that hears this and they have the notion that they will one day run for office or for a public service job of any kind, I hope they take that to heart. That's valuable. Immerse yourself in your community. Learn about everyone and every walk of life, because you're going to be serving them all.
Right.
And this is more of a final thought, but thank you for being our guest today. Learned so much. Appreciate you and what you bring to a very public office, but with a very personal pursuit, which is to be a difference maker. And obviously you are, and you're leading others to it, whether they're telling you that or not, you are. But I'll say I love the idea of encouraging anyone, but especially younger folks who maybe are a bit aspirational. Before you just pursue with that narrow arrowhead of target, expand that territory,
Right.
because you'd be pleasantly surprised, maybe even a little bit shocked, to know really what's going on out there. And I know we're of an age range where it's just happened naturally. But boy, if they could press that nature at maybe in their 20s or their 30s, I really do think it'll make a difference with them by the time they get to the 50s and 60s. I don't know that they will be maybe so hard or so defensive or so difficult. I really
Right.
think they'll be much more caring of people.
In the culture that we live in, that's really challenging.
Yeah.
Because we do a lot of demonizing.
Yes.
Yes.
And
sometimes we don't even realize it.
Yes.
It's just by the inherent nature that we've been brought up in, and our conversational tactics or whatever.
Right.
And we just carry on this way and not even conscious of it.
And I use the word unfortunate when it comes to that, but I mean that purposely, because the root word of unfortunate is fortune. There's no profit in being that way. There's absolutely no profit to demonize, because I have no idea. And even in counseling, I point toward our offices, which are near us, our recording place. I'll ask people to do what I call empathetic perception. Get behind their eyes and look back. And what do you think they see? Well, I don't know. Well, what did they tell you that they see? And eventually, well, I guess they said, now all of a sudden that territory gets expanded.
Right.
So it's a little tactic, but it tends to work sometimes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it makes you a lot more vulnerable. That's a hard word for me to say.
It's a hard word for anybody to say.
Right.
But whenever you recognize that.
Right. Yes, for sure.
Mayor West, thank you so much for being our guest today. Is there a message that you'd like to leave the audience with? I'll let you close that part out.
folks, I think you need to tune in to the next show. They did a great job. I don't even know who the next guest is, but I certainly recommend that if you don't have a church home, find a church home, and it is. I know who I follow every day, and I certainly would invite you to to explore that if that is not where you are right now.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Everybody out there, thank you for joining us again for another episode of Pursuit of Purpose. I'm Robbie.
I'm Chuck.
And today we've had with us Mayor
Roy West.
Thank you for being our guest. We sure appreciate you. Y'all have a great day.
In pursuit of